Hey guys, thanks for joining me for an episode of Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today we're going to take a look at a comparison video. This is my second video in a three-part video covering Batman Gotham City Chronicles, Monolith Games' brand new game that's going to be coming to Kickstarter. In this video, I'm going to be comparing Conan to Batman, as Conan was Monolith Games' first game that they've used the system that they have in. And so in Batman, they've listened to the feedback of the critics and gamers, all the different things that we've suggested, and they've implemented and improved as much of that as they could without destroying the system. So they've refined a lot of things, and there's a lot of things that I'm really excited about seeing, the things that they've listened to and the things that they've changed. So I'm going to show you guys in this video all those different changes. The one thing I won't be able to cover is a brand new thing that they're introducing with Batman, which is a versus system. So instead of 1 to 4 players playing the heroes and 1 player playing the villain, you can have a 1 player controlling heroes and 1 player controlling villains, but in a scrimmage setting. So you get to build your team based on a set of parameters, and both players will do this, and both players are going to have the villain tablet that they'll have all their different tokens on in that, and the river and all that kind of stuff, just like the villain player will have, as you guys, those of you that are familiar with this system are familiar with that. And so each player is going to have that, and they're going to be going back and forth, but that's about as much as I know on that one so far. So I'm really excited about that. As I get more information on that, I will do my best to share that with you guys as well. So like I said, first off, this is a game that I cannot wait to play. This is a really cool system. I found I got to try this out at Gen Con this year, and I got to sit down and have an interview with Monolith Games. And this is one that's been on my radar ever since. This is going to be a really cool game. The miniatures to this are amazing. For those of you that have played or had a chance to check out Conan, you know what kind of quality miniatures were in that. So this one is more of the same of that, and there's just going to be a ton of them. From what I've heard, there's going to be 100 miniatures in the core set. So you're going to get a ton of bang for your buck. So let's go ahead and jump in, and I will show you guys all the differences in these two games. Moving over to the player boards, you're going to notice right off the bat that these look completely different, aesthetically at least. They have a lot of the same features, but first off, with the Batman, this is a prototype still, and the production copy is also going to have this black trimmed area is going to be separate, and heroes are going to just drop their hero cards into these sections now. So hopefully it looks like they're going to be thicker, better made than our old Conan ones. From there's a lot of the same information. Each of our heroes still has the same type of actions they can perform. One addition to this is the thought action now, so that is going to add a different element into some of our games, some of the scenarios, such as the first one that you guys will see. You'll be able to use thought to activate computers and do different things like that, so it's a little bit more tech-based than that, where Conan obviously didn't need those type of things. Another big change is that the way that the stances work. In the old version, as heroes were killed, the players would receive more gems. In Batman, that won't happen anymore, as heroes cannot be killed anymore. They simply must rest when they run. All their wounds are in the, or all the gems are in the wounded section. And as they rest, they're going to be able to move gems out of there into the fatigue zone and back into reserve, as you guys will see later. Batman also has a lot of his characters now are going to have a utility belt. So each scenario will let you specialize the items that you bring into it. So that'll let you tailor your heroes to the needs that you want or the playstyle you have based on the mission, as there'll be a number of different types of cards you can include in there. So as you guys can see, we have like the grappling hook and the batarang that will have different values. So that is how you'll determine that. Our heroes and enemies also are going to have a size now, which is going to determine, as you guys saw with the game board, how many models can be in a single space at one time. The other big change is now with the heroes and villains, they also are going to have a maximum number of dice that they can spend on armor and rerolls. So in the old ones, like you guys could see here, the rerolls and armor, you could spend any number of your gems to reroll as many times as you wanted or until you ran out. In the new ones, all of these, both the heroes and the villains, are going to have limitations on that. So one of the other big changes with is the game board itself. As you guys can see right away, each space now is going to have a maximum amount of models that can be in it based on their size, and each model is going to have a size on it. So some of the bigger models will take up more space than others. You're also going to notice with the dots now, they still have a central dot, but there's also going to be some of them that have letters on them. And this will help you to identify if a space has line of sight to another space by referencing these letters. As long as both sections have that letter, then you have line of sight to that space. And that's going to help identify areas that, as you guys remember from Conan, could potentially have gone either way. You weren't quite sure if you had line of sight to them because they went through things, but they were elevated and whatnot. So now it's very easy. They make it very easy for you to know one way or the other. So for example, with this space up here having F, you have line of sight to this space now, as it also has an F. As before, it would cross that obstacle, so you weren't quite sure which way to go or how to rule it. Now, Monolith makes it really easy by identifying those with letters. They also have added a neat feature for the buildings, which is the green line. So now you know exactly which space the building is adjacent to and that it has line of sight to it, as the spaces that are separated by a green line are adjacent and have line of sight to each other. So another new addition to Batman is the number of dice that the players were going to have. As you guys remember from Conan, we only had the yellow, orange, and red dice, and now in Batman they've included a white dice and a black dice. The white dice is even worse than the yellow dice, as it only has two sides that have 2 successes on it, and the black dice is a little bit better than the red. It has a lot of blank sides on it, so it's a 50-50 dice. But it does have 2 sides that have 4 successes on it, so it can really do some damage or give you a ton of successes based on what you're rolling for. So moving over to our Overlord player for Conan, and for Batman it's going to be the villain player, their tablet is going to work very similarly. They have done some minor tweaks to the way that the villain turn order is going to go, and that is going to be some of the biggest effects for the villain player. So first off, the first thing you're going to notice is at the top, these 3 tokens here also are going to have a number in the top corner now. That is the maximum number of gems that the players can spend on those actions now, which is a big difference from Conan, where you didn't have those limitations. And that is going. The other big impact is the structure or the way that the Overlord turn is going to work. In Conan, the Overlord's turn started off by moving gems from his top spaces to his fatigue zone, and then going and moving those gems over to his reserve. From there, then he would go ahead and move the time counter, and then he would get to activate his models. At the end of the turn, again, he would move those gems over to the fatigue. They've made some changes to that, so in Batman now, the time counter is not going to be handled by the Overlord player anymore. It'll happen at the beginning of each round. And the other big difference is that gems will not be moved off of the section at the end of the round. So if the Overlord player spends gems into doing rerolls or additional movement and whatnot, they won't be able to spend those again during the hero's turn. They'll have to wait until their turn comes around again to remove those gems. So that is a big difference there. Other than that, the enemies work the same way as they did in Conan. They have added a couple little features such as the thought action to the enemies, as well as a couple of new icons up here. You still have the movement, their armor that they have come that is automatic to them. And now they have the unit size, so some of your enemies will be bigger than others and will take up more space within a space, and that is denoted there. And then enemies also have a malice now that is used for the hindering effects.